Good morning. At least it's 2 minutes before noon, so it's still, anyway. Good day. Uh, how's everything? Great over here. What I've been meditating on is pretty interesting because I like to revisit, and obviously, whenever I make up my mind about something, I like to let some time pass. I like to sit with it and see if it's flexible, or I could expand it, or just simply discard it into the rubbish bin. And a lot of times things are worth a second sight, a second review, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth. And one of the things I've talked about, and I've pretty much dismissed out of hand, is being a psychic. People have accused me of such a transgression as being psychic. And psychic to me meant having some insight into the future. And I'm too much of a fan of quantum physics, chaos theory, that happenstance, and that if you do one thing, it leads to another thing, actions, direct actions, or actions, obviously, direct consequences. And we talked about free will and destiny, preordained, and how that equally are so. So I want to take a look at this psychic, because, as I said, I always dismissed it out of hand. I don't want to be psychic. I don't claim to be psychic. But maybe I had to go and do a little more understanding of what I so quickly dismissed, because there's too many coincidences. Deja vu. There's just too many coincidences. If something seems familiar, deja vu. I've experienced this before. I've visited this before. I've heard this before. I've felt this before. I've tasted this before. I've smelled this before. I've heard this, as I probably had said previously. But what is this? What is this sensing? And remember, recently this all started out with a text messaging between my wife and I. She stays in Taipei, and the way we use the only way we could really communicate is through text. And we found out early on in our relationship that we don't do well on the phone. Like the conversation just, I don't like the phone. And that extends to my own wife. It's nice to hear her voice, but I want to look into the eyes of whoever I'm speaking to. Now, text is something different, because you can review it, you can hesitate before you post it, and speaking, like on the phone, you can't take things back. Once they're out there, they're out there. And since I quick to the tongue, because my tongue is many times quicker than my thinking, and things come out that would be better served unsaid, to say the least. um, so texting is a way to communicate. And she was talking about, she had mentioned that to her sometimes I seemed psychic, and I said, well, I have a problem with that. And since the future in some regards is preordained, but in equal regard is consequential, is based on free will. So the idea of knowing the fixed future just doesn't sit right, because nothing is fixed in this universe except the commonality of us all. The light, the spirit, the infinite, the awe, the I writ large, we, me, he. writ large, the commonality that we share. But then she said she had read somewhere about, a little more about psychic, and breaking it down into 4 elements. And the way that I saw, the way that I understood psychic was in its first dimension. And that's clairvoyant. And clairvoyant meant clear seeing, and this is a kind of I assumed, I just dismissed it as fortune telling. But when you look at it, to see things clearly. Now this is something that I work out, and I pride myself, there's a bad word. I applaud myself. That's another bad word. What do? Get rid of the I. I do see. But I always thought of my seeing as in the moment. I see right now. I see it in your eyes. I see it in your aura. I see it in your karma. I see it with a big, all in caps, S-E-E. So clairvoyant, well, maybe. I was adding, didn't see any dimension of future there. Okay? That's clairvoyance. And there's clairaudience. I skipped one. Clairsentience. Clairsentience, which means feeling. And I also feel things. But today's topic was to examine what I called seeing, just as I had previously delved into and got a deeper understanding of what clarity meant to me. Then let's go to clairaudience, clear hearing. I trust what I hear the least, depending on the source. But hearing is not the sense that I rely much on. I'm so busy with eternal work, and hearing by its nature is, in my assumption again, is exterior, coming from the outside. And again, I spend all my time in the inside, a human being. And that's what I've recently discovered with a nice conversation with my brother yesterday morning, is why it's so hard for me to do so many things. Because I'm absorbed in the inner life. And my brother was funny, he just said, he never thinks about internal. He just doesn't have any internal, it's not on his plate. He wants to know what he needs to do. He's a human doing. And I'm a human being. And I can see that in my whole life, I really had a hard time doing a lot of things. Some things came easily, but other things was really tough. And to relate to my body, I feel distance from my body, from being in my head so much, that to learn how to do things, mechanical things in particular, I just didn't have the desire, or didn't really seem to have the skill, because there was a disconnect between the mental and the physical. And I learned through my Zen practice of being here now, being in the moment, that doing things, as long as I'm doing them with the exclusion of all else, cooking breakfast, emptying the kitty litter box, doing my laundry, as long as I became totally absorbed in the doing, chop wood, carry water. And this served me, and then I started finding out little by little that with this kind of concentration or focus, which again is not really the right word, but this kind of acceptance of the moment, that I got better, that I could do things, that I got better mechanically if I just really concentrate on what I'm doing. And don't let the mind, my dyslexic mind, sometimes flip-flop, like looking in the mirror and trying to figure out which way to hold the razor. If I could get away from the trying to use the mind to guide the body. Let the body guide the body. So I can do things, and I've gotten better at doing things. And it serves me well because I'm a loner and a lot of things I just need to do. And was my brother's observation that I ask people to do too many things. And that might be when I really looked at it, because I kind of dismissed that, kind of poo-pooed, I kind of relegated my doing ability to, people could do it better and it's easier to ask. And my brother is someone that just does. He doesn't ever ask. Doesn't even ask permission. He just does it. And he's consumed. It's his focus, and he thinks that this is what life is about, and this is accomplishments, and this is, I can do this, and I did that, and he always is chronicling his achievements. And your bank account is kind of one of the best record of your ability to do. How much money you've managed to accumulate, how good you are with money. And I don't see much value in money. I get what I need. I provide it. I'm always okay. But I don't accumulate. And I don't look to money. Money certainly doesn't offer me any security. This world has no security. Anything could happen at any moment. And I guess that's a kind of a security, isn't it? Knowing that what will be, will be. So, I can do things. Surprise, surprise. But it takes, it's a Zen practice. It takes being in the moment. Doing only what I'm doing in the moment. And I sort of got a pleasure, a joy. I've grown to love cooking. I've grown to love to take better care of my bike, because I love bike riding so much. And it's important. But let's go back to these 4 clairs. So clear audience, which is about hearing again. But then there's the 4th one I never heard before. Clear cognizance. Clear knowing. Gut feeling. This is in the moment. This is the liver. This is half of the solar plexus chakra. I've divided it in half, and it's on either side, where normally it's the hara right in the middle of the belly, but I see the solar plexus on both sides, and 2 different expressions. Emotional, where you have to be on the wave, and you can't live in the now. You have to wait through a cycle, and predominantly that's a 28 plus day lunar cycle before you make decisions. And you're swayed by your emotions, you're guided by your salvation. Everything lies in your emotions. Where the other side is about instinct, survival. This is the primordial drive to survive. And this speaks in a soft voice. This can be loud, this can be screaming, this can drive you insane. The other side, the emotions, I don't have to talk to you about emotions, because most of you are victims of your emotions. I'm not dismissing them out of hand, that there's nothing good coming from that, but to me, something made out of an emotion. An emotion is different than feeling, and I'm going to talk to that, address that in a moment. But here, this instinct, this is from shouting to, but anyway, the emotions, the right side of the solar plexus chakra, which I've decided to divide because it's too distinct to me, functions of the solar plexus chakra. The yellow, red, orange, yellow. The yellow, the color of yellow. So immediate, instinctual survival. This speaks in a soft voice and it never repeats itself. Emotions you can get locked into a repetitive, it's of patterns. It's of highs and lows. This is too momentary to be classified as a high or a low. It's just an immediate, soft, never repeated, instinctual voice. And I'm trained, I listen to it because it saved me many times. Don't turn left. Okay. And I don't question it. I have complete trust. And as I sit here, 73, recently turned 73 years old, I've been able to survive. And this instinct, this soft voice, insistent in its softness, that it takes work to filter out everything else, and people are quick to dismiss something and then they pay the consequences. At least I have. And almost anything that turns out not exactly the way I wanted to, I had a warning and I missed them. I mean, I heard it but dismissed it, or I don't know, a lax in my attentiveness to survival, the most basic commonality of sentient beings is the need, the drive, the willingness, the acceptance of continued existence. So this clear cognizance, now a gut feeling, but cognizance, cognizance, most of us talks about the head. So why this gut feeling? Because I have thinking going on in both places. The gut is instinctual, the survival, what I'm calling the left-hand side, the splenic side of the solar plexus. So that's the gut feeling. And we were talking about, my wife and I, getting back to talking about, I have strong visual images in my mind, dreaming during meditative states, and I've talked to many people that don't. They might have colors, maybe it's a dialogue, but I have more images and less dialogue, but I'm just rich. When I think in pictures. I can see it. So we were talking, she said, I'm a seer or a feeler. And definitely a seer. Doesn't mean I'm without feelings, but it means that I don't give much credence to how something makes me feel. I don't put value to it. Does it make me feel good? Does it make me feel bad? Because I've learned that the nature of feeling, whether good or bad, is so fleeting and so it's constantly changing. Constantly there's something. No matter what you feel, there's another feeling coming up. Just as whatever you think, there's another thought coming up. But that's the monkey mind. And feelings for me are about on equal level of the monkey mind. For me, personally, I trust many people's feelings. I know they depend on that. That's their highly honed skill. But I'm talking about, all I can really talk about is personal, my experience. And this claircognizant, I'd heard of clairvoyance, I'd heard of clairsentience, I'd heard of audio, not groups of people, but clairaudience. But claircognition is something that I failed to, I wasn't even aware that it was a category. Again, this is all under psychic abilities, okay? Which I, again, dismissed, but I took a look, let's look at the, so those of you that might feel some connection with psychic abilities, and especially one of the expressions, whether you see things, whether you feel things, whether you hear things, or whether you know things. And a way to know that I looked into claircognizance because first it resonated, I wasn't familiar with it, but it resonated into how I operate. And some ways to recognize that you could be claircognizant. Your gut instincts are always right. Well, I don't swallow that. Nothing's always right. But more times than not. 80 out of 100, and that's always good with me. You know when someone is lying or not to be trusted. Well, that's also true, but sometimes I give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm an optimist. I like to think the best of people. I like to give them opportunity. So maybe I get burned once or twice or something, but not too many times after two. But a lot of times I'm willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. But if you feel that if time has told you that you know, and someone that might be truthful a lot of the times, telling a lie. And someone who lies to you doesn't necessarily have anything to do with trust. It depends on the magnitude of the lie, the intention of the lie. Now, a lot of people lie to exaggerate, to make themselves more than they think they are. And I'm okay with it, because I like to build up people. And what I really believe is that the things, not believe, because that's a fool's game, but what I really know is that this building up is closer to reality than certainly tearing down. Thinking better of yourself is certainly more constructive, even if it's exaggerating, than the opposite, denigrating, feeling bad about yourself, criticizing yourself, labeling yourself. This next one I like. I'm reading again, so you know me. This is I'm doing two things, trying to do things, talk to you and read, and that's stretching it sometimes for me, especially when I don't see very well. Claircognizance often interrupt. And that's why I like this format, because there's no one for me to interrupt but myself. And you see that I even interrupt myself and go off on tangents and something else comes up. So that's the interrupting. And I skipped one. I'm not going through this like I had it written down. We receive messages in the form of random ideas or solutions. And that, if I sit anything randomly, and I depend on that, this is what I utilize, the fine tool, the mind, for. I say, okay, open to messages, or open to random ideas, or random solutions. and bring them to me. Bring them to my attention. And the mind is like a friendly little dog. The mind wants to please. And again, the mind is not here to think. It's not here to make judgment with. It's not here to evaluate. It's not here to listen to in any sense as far as expecting your mind to know what to do. So this is the way I use it. Okay. Go get some random ideas. Be aware of random solutions. If I lose things, I give it to my mind. Find that, because I hate to lose things. I want to know where everything is. Sorry. But I try to keep my possessions as limited, but I still somehow don't rest unless I know where everything's accountable. I like things to be accountable. People, things, places, ideas. I like it to be accountable. I don't know why. It just is, okay? And go to the interruption one, because this is mea culpa, okay? Sometimes response even before the other person finishes a full sentence, because they already know what's coming. Amen. If you're claircognizant, your deeper inner knowing exceeds logic and reason, and you're absolutely certain of situations and or outcomes. And the sixth thing is wake up with solutions. Well, sometimes I don't even have to wake up. The solutions were in my dream, but I remember. So I do definitely, if you think of yourself of any of these things, take a look at claircognizance, and then you're like me. Maybe we don't have to dismiss this idea of being psychic so out of hand. So today's sharing was supposed to be about a seer or a feeler. But it led to this deeper interest, this deeper exploration of all things of psychic abilities, psychic tendencies, the usefulness, the possibility that such things even can happen. And now I know that I live in this state of claircognizance. And I love the fact that claircognizance, you know, which is where I think you know, and you know in the gut. And will I really, this is something that I'll spend more time on, the head or the gut. Where does the thinking go on? And we have to include the heart in that, don't we? So we'll talk about thinking, the location of thinking in a later date. Is it in the mind, the heart, or the gut? And that'll be fun to spend some time, because I'll have to sit on that. I have to do some self-analysis, because I do both. And it also leads to where does the soul reside? Mind, heart, gut? All three simultaneously? Fun speculation. I put this to deeper thought, to my process of locating, sorting and evaluating, assigning importance, and then storing or filing, and then along with that comes honing my ability to access all this stored information. And the key to this accessing memories, accessing thoughts, everything is there. Everything, trust me, every second of every moment of your life is there. It's been recorded. And it's not available to many people, but I've worked hard at making it available. And when I can't get it, I can rest in one certainty, rest assured, based on one certainty, is that I will know it when I need to know it. And if I don't know it at that moment, I don't need to know it in that moment. That's how I save that space on the hard drive. I don't have an external hard drive. I just put more and more on the hard drive. And what takes the most memory from the hard drive, takes the most space, is the process of locating it. Those little wheels spinning are burning energy. And if you just know it's there, rest assured that it's there, it's stored. And that if you can't get it, don't get frantic, don't panic. Just breathe and relax. And a lot of times, just in that process of breathing in, breathing out, relaxing, letting go, it comes to you. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it takes a few minutes, sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes years, sometimes it probably takes lifetimes if you continue things. Since there's no conclusion, there's no boundaries, everything is limitless. But our ability to know is inherent in our gift of sentience. Just as when I shared in the awakening process, I think this is a good note to end on. The awakening process of the library shelves, just the Alexandria, in the library of Alexandria, in Egypt, Alexandria, and the bookshelves and bookshelves, tall, monstrous bookshelves, just coming to me and crashing and dumping everything in my head until I learned, I knew everything that could be known, will be known, should be known, has been known. I knew it all. And for just a moment, I was able to contain without explosion. Now this came prior to the belly laugh, the great laugh, the final barrier of understanding, truly understanding non-duality. That's when this came, just leading up to that. So everything that is known, can be known, will be known, should be known, has been known, is, can be, is known by each and every one of us. Access yours. Experiment with yours if you have curiosity.